Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of Black and Gold Weekly in partnership with Black and Gold Productions. We are on to episode 28, and the NHL season has come to an end. The Tampa Bay Lightning have gone back-to-back and won their second straight Stanley Cup. Huge congratulations to them. And that really fully gets us into off-season mode now. Now, many of the NHL teams have already been in off-season mode, but because the season was still going on, because the finals were still happening, there wasn't a whole lot happening. Now the entire NHL is fully going to shift into off-season mode, signings, trades, buyouts, all that kind of stuff. And in the next coming weeks, there's going to be a lot happening as far as rosters, transactions, that kinds of thing, because we have the expansion draft coming up, we have the regular NHL entry draft coming up, and we have free agency beginning all within the next few weeks. So it's about to get really, really busy as far as the NHL offseason is concerned. So far, though, things have been fairly quiet on the offseason front. There's not been a whole lot to talk about. And what we're going to do today for this week is take a look at a couple of articles written by my BNG teammates talking about, first, the defense for the Boston Bruins and where they could possibly upgrade defensively in free agency. And then also with goaltending. Obviously, last week's episode for me was about goaltending and just going through the free agent goalies, talking about who Boston should be interested in, who they shouldn't be, things like that. Well, one of my BNG teammates, Evan, wrote an article about Bruins goaltending options in free agency, and we're going to kind of compare what he thinks to what I'm thinking about the Bruins goaltending this offseason and what they're going to do in net. So it's a couple of cool things to look at here. It should be a pretty good episode. Not sure how long it's going to be, but it should be a fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Before we begin, I do want to give a big thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team at Black and Gold Productions. This show is in partnership with them and would not be happening without them. So big shout out to Mark and everybody at B&G Productions for all of the support. I also, as always, want to turn your attention to the links down in the description of the video. The top link is for Boston Bruins gear. The second link is for NHL gear, whatever team you want. And the third link is for NCAA college gear if you want to rep a school. All three of those links really help out a lot. If you are in the market for any of those things, whether it's hats, shirts, pants, accessories, all different kinds of stuff. A huge selection to choose from in all three categories. If you're in the market looking to check out any of those things, it would be really, really appreciated if you could use the links down in the description. It does help out a lot. But we are going to get into it here, and I want to talk about the defense first. So we are going to pull up the article now. And this is by Zach Carlone of, obviously, Black and Gold Productions, writing for the blackandgoldhockey.com, which you should all be checking out. It is the B&G website that goes along, obviously, with Black and Gold Productions. And our team of writers are putting out awesome Bruins content each and every day. So please check out the website if you haven't already. And this is one of the articles written this past week. By Zach. It says options to improving the Bruins defense. So we're going to go through this article. I know I have my thoughts on guys that the Bruins should be looking at for defensive upgrades, and we'll see what Zach thinks as well. So let's take a look at it here. Starting off, obviously, this year was a roller coaster on the back end for the Boston Bruins. They had a very young defense overall. There were times they looked really, really good. There were times they kind of struggled. So it's definitely an area that if the Bruins are going to be a cup-level team, they need to upgrade. They are not going to win the Stanley Cup playing the same level of defense that they did in the playoffs this past year. They've got to upgrade somewhere on the back end if they're going to be a legitimate cup team. Zach talks about how the right side is stronger than the left. That is absolutely a fact. They are pretty good down the right side. I think the left side is definitely an area that they need an upgrade at for sure. Obviously, with the expansion draft coming up, McAvoy, Grzelcyk, and Carlo are your big three, the guys that are going to be protected. Carlo is an RFA and needs a new contract, but I don't think there's going to really be much of an issue of that getting done. He is vitally important to the Boston Bruins decor. We saw that in the playoffs last year because the New York Islanders series completely shifted when Brandon Carlo got hurt. Boston did not have the depth to replace him. They did not have another shutdown D-man who could come in and play as well defensively as Carlo. And ultimately, I think that's what cost the Bruins that series against the Islanders. If Carlo hadn't gotten hurt, I legitimately think that the Bruins would probably have won that series. And who knows what would have happened after that, but I absolutely think that Carlo getting injured cost the Bruins the series against the Islanders, and they didn't have a replacement that was good enough to fill in when he went out. So obviously, right side is stronger than the left. McAvoy, Carlo, and Grzelcyk are going to be your guys protected. That's the cornerstone of your D. Kevin Miller's a UFA. We don't know if he's going to be back. He probably won't be. I mean, even if he is, he's missed a lot of time. He's had a lot of injury issues. You can't really rely on him to be a regular in the lineup all season long. We saw that again this year. We saw it in the playoffs when he got injured in the Washington series. I mean, he could be a decent extra D-man, but he's not a guy that you can rely on. We saw Lauzon and Zaboral get looks this year. Thought they were very mediocre. Lauzon was better than Zaboral, but still Lauzon kind of struggled in the postseason. Clifton's shown that he's a solid depth guy, but he's not a guy that should be playing top 4 minutes or really anything close to that. Boston needs some help on D. They need to bring in another legit top guy. Or not a top guy, as in like you're not going out and making a Alex Pietrangelo deal like Vegas did last year, but another guy who can give you a solid 18 to 20 minutes a night, who can kind of solidify the middle portion of this Bruins decor and kind of slot guys down to where they're supposed to be. So you have your depth defensemen playing as depth defensemen and not having to play too many minutes. And you have a solid top 4 that can handle playing 20-plus minutes a night. Now, here, Mike Riley is brought up. So Riley was brought in at the trade deadline from Ottawa. He's a pending UFA. I like what I saw from Mike Riley. I think he absolutely is worth re-signing. Here he says he could be worth re-signing. I absolutely think that Mike Riley is worth re-signing, as long as it's obviously a reasonable deal. I think that Riley could be good to be brought back. However, I think you need another guy on that left side. I really think you need another guy on that left side to either round out the bottom pair or to play on that second pair with Brandon Carlo and let Riley kind of round out the bottom pair and then maybe give him some power play time as well. But Riley, I do think, is worth looking at to re-sign 100%. I thought he brought some decent offense from the back end. He's great in the transition game. He's a good skater. And I'd like to see him for a full season. I mean, he played really, really well at the end of the regular season with Boston. He had a decent start to the playoffs. He kind of fell off in the Islanders series, especially after Carlo got hurt. But almost everybody did. I mean, that's not something that's exclusive to Mike Riley. Almost everybody fell off in the Islanders series as that series went along, with probably McAvoy being the only exception as far as defensemen go, who didn't really decline. So I'm not really holding that against Mike Riley. I think him for a full season could be a very useful player in the Boston Bruins lineup. But that's not enough. They're going to need to bring somebody in that improves the defense if they want to be a cup contending team and not just a playoff team that's going to be out in either the first or the second round. They need a legitimate upgrade. And The first one that Zach brings up here, I absolutely love. I am all over this. I talked about him a couple weeks ago in the episode when I was looking at free agents that the Bruins could potentially target. Alec Martinez from the Vegas Golden Knights should be absolutely a top target of the Boston Bruins this offseason. Yes, he's a veteran. He's 33 years old. But he's still playing at such a high level. He's been one of the more underrated defensemen around the NHL throughout his career. He chips in well offensively. He's a very solid defender. He's won 2 Stanley Cups with the LA Kings. He's played with Vegas for the last year plus. And Vegas obviously is not going to be able to bring him back with their salary cap situation, so he's going to be a UFA. He's going to hit the open market. He just played these entire last playoffs with a broken foot, meaning that he can play through injury. He's gritty. He is very durable. He doesn't miss a lot of time. This is a guy that Boston absolutely would be significantly better if they were able to put him in their lineup. He's a left shot D-man. He plays the left side. It's exactly what the Bruins need. There's nothing bad about bringing Alec Martinez in. There is nothing bad about bringing Martinez in if you're the Boston Bruins. I mean, he's been such an underrated guy. He's won Stanley Cups. He's got a ton of experience. He's a great leader. He's durable. He'll play through injuries. He's going to be on the ice for you. He can give you, 30 to 40 plus points. I mean, he could give you 40 plus points with an 82 game season coming back. I mean, he had 32 points in 53 games with Vegas this year. If you're playing him over an 82 game season, he's going to give you 40 plus, maybe even 50 points from the back end. He's a legitimate top 4 guy who would significantly improve the Bruins defensively. And the thing with Alec Martinez is you could pair him with anybody from the Boston Bruins, and he would be a great fit. I mean, he played with Pietrangelo in Vegas, and they were a great top pair with Martinez and Pietrangelo for the Golden Knights. But you could play him with Carlo. He and Carlo could be an incredibly good shutdown pair. You could play him on the third pair with, Clifton or somebody on the left side, or whoever really on the left side, or the right side, excuse me. You could play him on with a young guy next to him on the right side, and he would be able to play there and mentor that young player in. You could play him anywhere in the Bruins D lineup, and Alec Martinez would be a great fit. And this guy can play in all situations. I think he's been one of the most underrated defensemen, because he's never been a number 1. He's never been a Norris Trophy guy. He's never been an elite defenseman that gets all the attention and everything from the media and the fans. But he's been such a solid two-way player for such a long time now in the league. You know exactly what you're going to get out of him on a night in and night out basis. I cannot speak highly enough of Alec Martinez. For somebody who watches the entire league and doesn't just focus on the Boston Bruins, but watches the NHL as a whole, Alec Martinez would make the Bruins significantly better in so many ways. And I think this should be Boston's top free agent target for guys that are not already obviously on the team. So if you're talking about re-signings, that could be a different story depending on how you feel about Taylor Hall. But as far as bringing outside guys into Boston, Alec Martinez should be near the top of the Bruins wish list. This guy would be a significant upgrade to the Bruins D-core. Jamie Oleksiak, this is an interesting one, because Jamie Oleksiak is not going to have the same effect as an Alec Martinez. This is not as big of a move, but this is a guy who can play very good shutdown defense. And if you add him to the Bruins lineup and play him on the bottom pair, I would like this move if Boston brought back Mike Riley to play with Carlo and then put Oleksiak on the bottom pair on the left side. I think that this could be an underrated move in the right situation. If you're bringing in Jamie Oleksiak to come in and try and play, 20 plus minutes a night. Now, he did play over 20 minutes a game with the Dallas Stars this past season. He is a workhorse. And he can play 20 plus minutes a game. But I think if you're a cup level team, Jamie Oleksiak is a bottom pair defenseman, but he's a very good bottom pair defenseman. And he's big, he's physical, he can fight when he needs to, he's 6'7". Now, there are some deficiencies in his game. He's not a great skater. That's definitely something that you can, work him a little bit if you're the offensive team. His skating isn't great, but most guys who are this big aren't super fast skaters. They're not particularly great skaters. I mean, Dustin Byfuglien is really one of the only guys that comes to mind that had, the 6'7", 6'6" size and was still an elite skater. Even Zdeno Chara, skating wasn't his strong suit. These bigger players find ways to work around that. Oleksiak is a very capable NHL defenseman. He'd also be a lower cost for the Bruins. Like, if you're getting Alec Martinez, you're probably looking at $4.5 to $5 million per season for Alec Martinez. Jamie Oleksiak, you're probably looking somewhere, I think we're spot on here in the article with $2 to $3 million AAV. I think you're going to get Oleksiak somewhere between $2 and $3 mil per year. And again, if you don't get Martinez, I think he would be a great second option in the free agent market who could come in, play on the bottom pair, also bring back Mike Riley, and have Grzelcyk, Riley, Oleksiak be your left side for next season. I think that would be decent for the Boston Bruins. And Oleksiak's gotten a lot better over the last few seasons. Like his first stint with Dallas was what it was. Then he got traded to Pittsburgh. Then he got traded back to Dallas. His second stint with Dallas has been very, very solid. And I think he could be a very solid, more bottom pair addition for the Bruins. Erik Gustafsson, no. Cross this right off the list. I don't want to see Erik Gustafsson in any NHL lineup next year. Never mind the Boston Bruins. This guy is brutal. Absolutely brutal. I don't even want to look at him. He is absolutely horrendous. Might be the worst defenseman still in an NHL lineup, and the Boston Bruins should want absolutely nothing to do with Erik Gustafsson. This guy does not even belong in the league. Jake McCabe. This could be an interesting one. McCabe missed pretty much all of last season, or most of last season. He played 13 games, but he missed almost all of last season with injury. But he's an interesting guy because I think there's still a decent amount of potential there with Jake McCabe. He's 27 years old. He's played his entire career to this point in Buffalo. He's shown glimpses of being a pretty good middle pair defenseman. He's not a top pair guy, but he could be a pretty good middle pair defenseman in the right situation. He's also had stretches where he's really, really struggled. Now, you got to take into account that he's been playing in Buffalo his entire career. Buffalo's been one of the worst teams in the league for his entire career. He's been on a bad team every single season he's played in the NHL. So, you got to kind of weigh out how much of it is Jake McCabe being an issue and how much of it is Buffalo being the issue, and how much better can he get if he goes to a better situation. And believe me, the Boston Bruins, who are a perennial playoff team, are a significantly better situation than the Buffalo Sabres. So I think McCabe could be a solid D-man, and one that not a lot of people are talking about. I think because he didn't play much this past season, his name has kind of fallen off as far as notoriety goes a little bit. But I think in the right situation with a good team around him, which Boston does have, he could still be a really solid left side addition. He could play on this middle pair or on the bottom pair. He's certainly not a top pair defenseman, but he could play in the bottom four for sure. And, I think, if it's better than nothing if you're the Bruins. He certainly is better than having Zaboral or Lauzon playing a regular shift in the lineup on the left side. McCabe is better than that. So that would also be an upgrade for the Boston Bruins. And an interesting one that not a lot of people are talking about, but as you get through free agency and if some of the bigger guys come off the board, if Martinez and Oleksiak and those guys aren't available, McCabe could be a good secondary option. Alex Goligoski. Now, this is an interesting one. Goligoski is 35 years old. He's been in the NHL for a long time. He's played in Pittsburgh. He's played in Dallas. He's played in Arizona. He's most recently been with Arizona. He's approaching 1,000 career NHL games. He could be a decent veteran option. Now, I've noticed a lot of, well, not a lot of decline, but I've definitely noticed some decline in Goligoski's game over the past couple of seasons, and that worries me a little bit. I think there are better options out there for Boston than Alex Goligoski. Now, if all those other options are off the board and they're left with Goligoski, I wouldn't be opposed to giving him a look, because I still think he can be a solid defenseman, but he's not going to give you the offense that he once did, and he's definitely starting to slow down a little bit. He's noticeably slowed down a little bit, and you would expect that for a guy who's now entering his mid-30s. I mean, he's still definitely got at least a couple more NHL-level seasons in him, but they're not going to be at the same level that they were, obviously, in his prime, and I just think that Boston has better options out there than Alex Goligoski. However, he could be a solid veteran depth piece if they want to go that route. Again, I'd much rather have Alec Martinez. I'd much rather have Jamie Oleksiak. I'd even rather have Jake McCabe. Now, Goligoski I would rather have than Gustafsson, but I'd rather have Lauzon or Zaboral up than freaking Gustafsson in the Bruins lineup. So Goligoski could be an option if your top guys aren't still available that you're looking for, but he's definitely noticeably declined over the past couple years. So those are the defensemen that Zach points out in this article here on blackandgoldhockey.com. I really like a lot of these options. I like the idea of re-signing Mike Riley. I think Alec Martinez would be a huge upgrade. I think Oleksiak could be a really solid fit on the bottom pair. Gustafsson is the only one that I disagree with. I don't want anything to do with Eric Gustafsson. That guy is absolutely brutal. Jake McCabe, I think, could be a real wild card of a move. Not really sure which way that would go, but I think there's potential there for that to work out decently for the Bruins. It could be absolutely a risk worth taking if you're Boston, because there is upside potential there if you get him on a good team and he doesn't have to suffer in Buffalo anymore. And Goligoski I look at as kind of like a veteran distant option. If none of these other guys work out, you could bring him in just to bring a body in, and he might have a good year or two left, but he's not going to be an impact player on the back end. I think Boston needs more of an impact player like an Alec Martinez, who would be my top choice for the Boston Bruins to go after as far as defensemen go this offseason. Alec Martinez is the guy I think they need to go get. So that's about what I got for defensemen here, as far as the Bruins and who they could sign to try and improve the left side of that defense. I think if they're going to be a Stanley Cup level team, they absolutely do need to improve the left side of that defense. I don't think they have a cup level D-core right now. They're going to need to upgrade it, and I think there are some pretty decent options out there. Now I want to switch to goaltending, because goaltending is something that we talked a lot about last week. I went through the free agent goaltenders and kind of talked about guys that I thought that Boston should be looking at and going after. And recently, this past week, Evan Michael wrote for blackandgoldhockey.com an article about Boston's goaltending options in free agency. And I'm going to go through that article now, and let's take a look at what he thinks about the Bruins' goaltending options. So here we go, the Cup in the Crease Part 3. The first two were about Bruins in-house options. One was Rask and Halak. Two was Vladar and Swayman. And now Part 3 is going out and getting somebody in free agency. So we're going to take a look here. Boston does have a lot of options, and they're going to have to do something about goaltending coming up, knowing that Rask, even if he does return, is not going to be ready for at least the first half of the season. So the first two that he points out are from the Carolina Hurricanes, James Reimer and Peter Mrazek. I talked a lot about Mrazek in the show last week because I think he would be a decent option for the Bruins. James Reimer, I do not want. I have never been a big Reimer fan. I don't think he's a very good goaltender. He shows flashes. He'll have stretches where he'll be really good for a few games in a row, and then he'll just go back to being absolutely brutal. He gives up a lot of soft goals. That's been an issue with Reimer throughout his entire career, is giving up soft goals, and I just don't want it. I don't think James Reimer is a good option. There are significantly better options out there on the free agency market or via trade than James Reimer. I would, however, not be opposed to Peter Mrazek. I think Mrazek could be a real solid guy to hold down the fort for Boston until Tuukka Rask is able to come back from injury. And I think he is a guy that could come in and play a tandem with Rask as well when Rask does come back, because he's used to playing a tandem in Carolina, and he's put up great numbers in Carolina. Evan here in the article seems to think that Reimer would be a better fit for Boston. I don't see that at all. I don't think James Reimer is a very good goaltender. I really don't. I don't want him in Boston. I think that the better option here clearly is Mrazek. Much better player, better numbers. Reimer, I'm not a fan of his, so I'm out on James Reimer. But Mrazek, as I said last week, could be a good option for the Bruins. Couple of beasts here. Yes, a Coyote and a Predator. Antti Raanta from the Arizona Coyotes and Pekka Rinne from the Nashville Predators. So again here, Antti Raanta is an interesting case because he's shown glimpses of being a very good 1B in his NHL career and having the ability to put up a .920 save percentage and goals against around 2.5. However, he's struggled with injuries. He's missed a lot of time over the last few seasons, and he always throughout his career, he's had some injury problems here and there. Last season was particularly bad. I think he only played like 11 games last year, and his numbers were atrocious. He was giving up over 3.3 goals per game. So, again, that's a limited sample size in an injury-riddled season. You got to look beyond just last season for Antti Raanta. But there are certainly question marks there. Could it work out? Absolutely. Could he come in and be a solid guy to hold down the fort for next season? Absolutely. Could he end up getting hurt again? And then you're out of luck because, the guy that you brought in while Rask was out is now out himself. That could be a big issue with Antti Raanta. Also, can he bounce back from the season that he had last year? Because it was not very good. And then Pekka Rinne, Pekka's 38 years old now. He didn't put up great numbers with Nashville last year. He definitely, he's handed things over at this point to UC Saros in Nashville. I don't know if Pekka Rinne is what the Bruins need. I think at this point he is a pure backup, and I think Boston needs somebody that can hold down the fort and play, at least be a 1B. And play a little bit more than Rinne can at this point in his career. Nothing against Pekka Rinne. He's had a great NHL career and has been a very good goalie for a long time. But I think he's just declined to the point where that option doesn't make a whole lot of sense for the Bruins. And I think that there are a lot better options out there than Pekka Rinne, who I think at this point is pretty much just a backup goaltender who you don't want playing any more than 20, 25 games a season. I think, he'd be a good veteran backup to bring in for a young starter, a starter who can play 55 to 60 games, but Boston's obviously not in that situation right now. So I'd be out on Rinne. Raanta could be an interesting option. It could work out. It could not. There's a lot of question marks there. So as we scroll down, we got more here, a couple of long shots. Frederik Andersen. Again, last week's episode, I talked about Andersen being out of the Bruins league. I don't think Frederik Andersen's coming to Boston. I really don't. I think he's going to get a much bigger contract than what the Bruins are going to be offering a goaltender this offseason. I think the Bruins are looking for that more like 1 to 2 year, just bridge the gap kind of guy, where Andersen's going to be looking for something more in that 4 to 5 year term where, you know, he knows he's going to be the starting goaltender, or at least the 1A in a 1A, 1B type situation, but he's going to be the guy that's leaned on. I just think that that's a bigger fish than what the Bruins are looking for this offseason. He did not have a very good year last year. I definitely think a change of scenery would be good for Freddie Andersen. But I don't know if Boston's the right fit, and I don't know if Andersen is what the Bruins need. I think they need more of that just 1 to 2 year holdover guy until they get a more long-term solution down in the line, which hopefully will be Jeremy Swayman, but we don't know that yet. The other guy is Jonathan Bernier, and I talked about Jonathan Bernier a lot in last week's episode because I think he should be one of the Bruins' top targets as far as goaltending goes if you're looking for a free agent goaltender this offseason. And I know that Evan kind of pushed him down to the bottom as a long shot here, but I think Bernier is a lot better than people who than most fans of the game realize, because not many people have been paying close attention to the Detroit Red Wings for the past couple years, other than Red Wings fans, obviously, because they've been one of the worst teams in the league. And if you don't see the Red Wings that often, you probably don't know how good Jonathan Bernier has been. But despite being on an absolutely horrid team for the past 2 seasons, his individual numbers, his save percentage, his goals against, just his ability to make big stops for the Red Wings have been really, really good. And he has stood on his head at times for Detroit, where games that they should have been getting blown out by 5 or 6 goals, he was able to keep to a 2 or 3 goal game. And, you know, on the score sheet or on the box score, it's still a loss. It's still 3 or 4 goals against, and things like that don't really come out through the statistical numbers with Jonathan Bernier, but his save percentage is outstanding, and I think if you get him on a team with a much better defense in front of him, which the Boston Bruins have a astronomically better defense than the Detroit Red Wings, his save percentage could be up near .925, I think. I honestly think he could put a .925 save percentage season together in Boston, maybe even push .930. I mean, this is a guy who's pushed .920 with the Red Wings. I think he can push .930 with the Bruins easily. And I think he's really gone under the radar over the past few seasons because he's been in Detroit. But Jonathan Bernier is a much better option than I think most Bruins fans realize. And I would absolutely love to see the Bruins go out and get Jonathan Bernier and bring him in to be that hold down the fort guy for the next season, at least, maybe 2, but at least next year. Also re-sign Rask, and then you let Bernier hold down the fort for the first half of the year, and then when Rask comes back in the second half, you have a 1-2 punch of Tuukka Rask and Jonathan Bernier, and I think that could be a really good goaltending tandem for the Bruins late in the season and heading into the playoffs. So, honestly, I think Bernier is really going under the radar and is a great option that a lot of people don't realize is such a good option for the Bruins, and he could play really, really well here for Boston and be a big part of this team next season. So, all in all, we know that the Bruins have to do something as far as goaltending is concerned. Obviously, I talked about a few more goaltenders than this in the show last week because I had the full list of free agents up. Just going through, James Reimer, I personally do not want to see in a Bruins uniform. I am not a Reimer fan. Mrazek, I definitely think could be a decent option. Definitely should be on the radar for the Bruins. Antti Ranta, I think, is definitely an interesting option. Certainly should be talked about and a possibility. Not sure if it's the best option, but it definitely could happen. Pekka Rinne, I just don't think really fits what the Bruins need. I don't think he can play the number of games anymore that Boston needs a true 1B guy. Rinne at his age, I think, is more of a pure backup at this point. And I just don't think the fit is great there. And then Anderson, I think, is kind of out of Boston's league, but we'll find out. But I see that very much as a long shot, as it's mentioned here in the article. And Jonathan Bernier, I think, is probably the Bruins' best option out of these guys listed. Honestly, I would say Bernier would be my top pick, Mrazek number 2, and maybe Antti Raanta number 3. But Bernier, I think, is really flying under the radar. I don't look at him as a long shot at all, personally. I think he is exactly the kind of guy that the Bruins need to bring in. And I think he could fit in here really, really well. So I think he would be my pick for sure. But the Bruins definitely have options here as far as goaltending goes heading into the offseason. And they are going to have to use some of those options because their goaltending situation heading into next year is very, very up in the air, to say the least, where you have Rask and Halak, both UFAs, don't know who's going to be back, if any of them are going to be back. You know that if Rask does come back, he's not playing at least until February because of the injury, so you got to do something in goal. You've got Vladar and Swayman, who are both talented young goalies, but neither are ready to be a starter in the NHL yet. So you're going to have to do something this offseason as far as bringing in a free agent goaltender. And I think there are good options out there for Boston as well in that regard. As well as defense, what we talked about earlier, they've got to improve that left side. They need to improve the D-core if they're going to be a cup-level team next year. We'll see what they're able to do this offseason. But obviously, nothing has happened yet. These are all just options. Free agency does not open until the end of July, or towards the end of July. But when it does open, there are going to be a lot of decisions that need to be made for the Boston Bruins. But with that, that's going to do it for episode 28 of Black and Gold Weekly. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Really, really appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Be sure to check out blackandgoldhockey.com. That's where those articles were from, part of Black and Gold Productions, the Black and Gold Productions website, where all the great writers at B&G are putting their work out on a daily basis. So definitely check those out. A big thank you to Black and Gold Productions. Again, this show would not be happening without them. This show is in partnership with them. So thank you to Mark Allred and the entire team there for all the support. Don't forget about the links down in the description of the video if you're in the market for Boston Bruins apparel, NHL apparel, or NCAA apparel. All 3 links are down in the description. And it's really, really appreciated if you check those out. And that's going to bring us now to the end of episode 28. We're getting closer to the draft. We're getting closer to free agency. We'll have plenty to talk about as far as the offseason goes coming up. But there hasn't been a whole lot happening yet. It's all speculation at this point. But Boston, we know, is going to be making some moves this offseason. And we'll take you right along with them as they happen and talk about them each and every week. And what my thoughts, and if I have a guest on, their thoughts about what the Bruins are doing. But with that, thank you guys again so much for watching, and talk to you soon.